DJ. In between sets, we were just talking about how important it is to learn how to network properly and what networking means. And also, like, in a way, kind of seeing networking for what it could be, like how we could maybe build even a networking course inside of Pro Academia. Because it's not always easy to understand, like, what does networking actually mean and what is its use in business. So I guess maybe, what do you think? Do you wanna go and explain who you are? I think everyone knows us here, so I'm not sure if you want to introduce. Basically, we're second year students. For some of us who don't know who we are, we're second year students, and we're just trying to get as much public speaking time in as possible, and we want to sign up for any options that we have to be able to speak in public, and also we want to offer value to you guys that come here and listen to us. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I think we are already really popular among the students, so I think it would be good. Do you want me to explain the network?
Yeah, I think we can explain it maybe together, or like, because I think what we maybe came up with when we were brainstorming was these keywords. And I think for me, when I hear the word network, I think, do I have a Wi-Fi connection? And it's probably because I'm looking for connection. And so networking for me means connection, and then connection also needs a spark. It needs electricity. It needs some sort of energy inside of it in order for that to kind of connect and work. And then I started to think with you that, like, actually everything is in relationship to everything else. So the wire is in connection to the electricity, and it's what contains the electricity. So you could think about it as the paya that contains the people inside of it. And there's so many relationships, and I mean, we started just talking a lot about how important relationships are in networking.
Right.
And then how, when you have power, any kind of spark, any kind of energy, any kind of vibe, any kind of momentum or enthusiasm, that you should empower other people. So I think that was the idea behind how to create win-win situations. And we wanted to basically say that if the word me is actually funny. It's M is actually a W upside down. So if you say me, or you can say we, and everyone's kind of thinking me as an individualist, but when you're learning about how to do things together and create win-win situations, it's a relationship. So it's not just me, it's we.
Right.
So we thought together, like, how can we do this me, we in a way that's like, you know, creating win-wins everywhere we go.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how it started. We're like, first it started big. We're like, let's have a course at Pro Academia. And now we have 2 hours just to kind of pitch the idea, like, do we need networking? Do we need to understand more what is networking? And do we understand how to create win-win situations for everybody around us? Yesterday we talked even about win-win-win.
Win-win-win, yes.
And we'll get into that also. I think it's, like, you wanted to tell more about it, you can.
It just, in basic terms, if you say win-win-win, it should be a win for the first party, win for the second party, and win for the background as well. I cannot go in depth with that right now because we have further questions on that.
Yeah.
Well, let's say it's a win for the whole world. Like, it's a win for all the stakeholders included in that transaction.
And the container in which the stakeholders, like, live or are or be. So it's win-win-win is actually kind of the extra. I don't want to be too extra for you guys, so I just wanted to keep it like win-win, so we can just like calm down a bit. And so I don't know if you want to start with this, but I could just say that there's a time for collaboration and there's a time for competition, and we've been discussing this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can go for it if you want to.
Yeah, so there's a time for collaboration and a time for competition. So collaboration and competition are two really different set of ideas. So if you want to play a short-term game, like short-term growths or probably quick growths, it's about competition. But when it's on a large scale, when you have to have a long shot, then it's about collaboration. So for that, I came up with 4 examples actually. I cannot see the 2 images, but that's fine. I will explain about them as well. So if you see Kia and Hyundai, so these are 2 companies which are probably the best example when we say about collaboration. So as I come from India, Hyundai is a really, really big car company in India as well. It has a huge market in India. But then one time, probably let's say 5 years ago, this company called Kia entered the Indian market. Now, India is a really big market for automobile, and it has multiple companies which owns some sort of market cap into the country. So when a big giant like Kia enters the market, it will take some kind of share from the market, right? So in this kind of scenario, a company like Hyundai, which has really big market in India, what would they do? Would they collaborate with a company like Kia, which at some point would take their market share, or would they try to stop them from entering the market? Well, then turns out that Hyundai actually helped Kia to come into the Indian market. So they can work together as a collaboration, make the body designs of their cars, make premium cars like Kia Carnival, and have Hyundai cars which are probably 5,000–6,000 euros, starting from 5,000–6,000 euros as well. So to have a bigger game, they had to do a collaboration. Because anyhow, at some point, Kia would enter the Indian market and it would take the market share and compete with Hyundai. So instead, they both decided to collaborate and create a win-win situation for both of them. Then it was the example of Apple and Samsung. As you might probably know, that the thousands of euros which you spend on buying an iPhone and people commenting in the Instagram section and having a debate on which phone is better, iPhone or Samsung, well, turns out the OLED display of Apple is supplied by Samsung. A big collaboration right here. Samsung phone starts from probably 100 euros, 150 euros. And iPhone has a premium segment of phones which starts from 1,500, 1,400 euros. In this situation, they wanted to have a collaboration and create a win-win so that Apple can capture the premium segment, Samsung gets benefits by creating the screen, and they have the mid to low range segment. And that's how they dominate the mobile market.
And as far as teams are concerned, we're thinking about in healthy competition versus competition. And so I think it's also nice that by creating collaboration first, they created a healthier competition in the marketplace, but also we can do that in our own teams. I think it's interesting how team players are either competing against each other, which as far as Amy Edmondson's concerned, psychological safety expert, that we shouldn't be competing against each other, we should be collaborating with each other. And in order to do that, we have to have humility, be humble to learn and say I don't know something, and also we have to be curious, because curiosity kills judgment. So you can judge quick, you can always say quick, I call it quick data, like when you're just analyzing data really quickly and you don't have time to really think things through and reflect, then you also come to these conclusions really easily that that you're not really like thinking things through, and it's not finished data, it's not really researched. So I think sometimes it's important to not judge, but maybe be more curious and more kind of this healthy collaboration together with your teammates. So we're thinking about this a lot, and why competition is also important for teams as well, is that it's nice to, in Pro Academia, for example, where we study upstairs, you can take healthy competition teams between teams, and then you can have things like sales days, for example, where there's a time and place. There is a time and place for collaboration and a time and place for competition. And so understanding the nuance of those two things and how to not be like, oh, I made more money than you, so you're obviously somebody who's lazy. It's like, but are we on the same team, or are we on different teams? And I think it's interesting to think about teams and team making money, and then market shares and big companies making money together, that not everything is a battle, actually, that we actually help each other even when we're making millions and millions and millions of euros. And what are the things that allow for that to happen? Well, obviously really good leadership and somehow some sort of understanding of statistics. And we'll get into game theory and gamification later, because that's actually why we wanted to really do this, is that we wanted to make a kind of distinction between what is game theory and what is gamification, and how that they both can be used when you're thinking about win-win situations. So,
by the way, Manisha, I would also like to highlight one more example, which is really recent. It's if you have heard of Mr. Beast, the biggest YouTuber in the world, and then Ronaldo, controversially the best football player, I said it. But then he started a YouTube channel, and on the first video he just said that I want to be a bigger YouTuber than Mr. Beast. So now there is a situation of competition. And we all thought that it's going to be a huge competition, a debate, but turns out, after a few days, they made a video together on YouTube. That's how they created a win-win situation for both of them, because Cristiano has a big fan following on multiple platforms, social platforms. Mr. Beast can gain from that. And people who watch YouTube also watch Mr. Beast, so they would know that their favorite athlete is also on YouTube, and then they subscribe Cristiano. So that's also a win-win situation created in this recent time.
Yeah, win-win. This is how I kind of live my life. I always also think, and the win-win doesn't also usually start with me. It's not like I want to win and then I want you to win too. It's more like, oh, if I see that you two can win, like if you can win and you can win, then that's still a win-win. It just has nothing to do with me. So for example, and it's really interesting. So if I see like a yellow triangle, we talked about this yesterday. I was like, if I see a yellow triangle and then I notice a yellow triangle in the distance, I'm like, these yellow triangles belong together forever, you know? And then I go, have you met each other? And then I networking. But I don't just network for my own benefit. I network when I can gamify things. So I gamify a lot. Like everything for me is a game. It's like, in a sense, those yellow triangles is my way of saying like, I want to make this puzzle work. And I want to create something that's bigger than myself. So I create win-win situations that I get no gains from. But do we really get no gains from making other people win? And this is the thing what we've been talking about, and this is why we're excited about this exact seminar, was that it's impossible to not win when others win. And we could talk about politics, we could talk about business, we could talk about anything, but when people are winning, they're not probably hurting each other. So it can't hurt to win. The values of a win-win situation. Kindness. Be kind. It's easy for people to say, oh, be kind, because actually it's really hard to be kind all the time because people piss us off and people say things and we get triggered, and we also have other unkind emotions inside of us all. So we have duality, and I think it's also important to understand that and not be like, oh, I'm gonna create win-win situations all the time. Definitely in my life I have created lose-lose situations, and definitely in my life I have created lose-win situations, because nobody's perfect. But how I like to keep my statistics high is that I try to always focus on creating win-win situations. So I think the values of that are like kindness. Like being kind actually allows for you to have more statistic like kind of opportunity to create these win-win situations. Being helpful also. The values of helpfulness I think are, for me, like sometimes you don't want to help people who you don't really know, right? Like why would you say, oh, Militia, there's a yellow triangle in the distance, you don't know that person, like you know briefly just a bit about what they said earlier, but you don't really know them. And then you're like, but you know this yellow triangle here, but you don't really know them either. Like why would you take your time and energy to go and put two yellow triangles that you have no investment in? And for me, it's like, I like to be helpful. I like it when other people can recognize their triangulation together and be like, oh, we're yellow triangles, yay. And for me, it's like, being helpful for me is not anything away from myself. It's kind of just making me feel more electric, more energetic, and it's kind of this momentum that is not just about me, but creating that in the world. It's fun, you know? It's nice to be positive and helpful. I like this generosity idea. I also think it's generous to be helpful. I also think it's generous to choose kindness, and it's kind of not easy to do all the time, because sometimes it's like me, me, me. But if we flip the me upside down, it's we. So it's kind of interesting for me to always play that in my mind. That's also a game. It's a game of flipping the M upside down. And it's very fun, you know what I mean? I'm like, and when we were talking yesterday, I was like, the me is actually a we, whoa. Do you know what I mean? And we're like, whoa, this seminar is gonna be amazing.
A eureka moment.
Yeah, exactly. We're just like killing it. And so then I was like, yeah, it's really generous also to kind of, to also want people to win. Supportive, I think, is also another important value of win-win situations. I think that supporting other people, supporting those yellow triangles even though you feel like you're a square. Being supportive is also really important. Also for me as a person, I feel like I wouldn't have gotten this far in my life if I wouldn't have had this support. I also was for a long time supporting other people to become more successful chefs. Yeah, I think support is a very important aspect and value of creating win-win situations. It's kind of maybe the crux of it. To be considerate. I think that's something for me. There's like this little thing about consideration, and I don't know if there's a translation for this word in other cultures, but consideration for me is like the best friend of kindness. It's like, I see consideration as kind of like the prerequisite. In order to be kind, you have to also consider something. And so it's really hard sometimes to consider things, because usually we're just doing acts of kindness. But before you do the act of kindness, you actually have to consider, should I be kind in this situation? So it's kind of like the awareness of kindness, to be considerate of others, or to consider people, or to think considerately.
Right.
But you have this word also in your language, to be considerate.
Yeah, and I would also, when I think about this win-win values, I also think of the example that there is a place called Bangalore, and it's the startup capital